This is lesson 6 of the STEP program. And today we're going to start differently. Usually we do a little warm-up, but today I would like you to fill out this form. It's called My Plan for Improving Relationships. And since this is on video, I'll tell you what it says. My specific concern, my usual response, and you have a choice: talking or lecturing, noticing or nagging, becoming angry, punishing, removing privileges, shaming, threatening or warning, or other. And then you have your progress so far this week. And you can check off, I am doing this more or less, or I'm about the same. So you're basically assessing how you're progressing with the following skills: listening, acting firmly and kindly, becoming consistent, encouraging, practicing mutual respect, communicating love, withdrawing from conflict, using consequences, stimulating self-reliance, stimulating decision-making responsibility, and taking time for fun. So the first part is fairly negative, and the second part is pretty darn positive. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to fill this out, and if you are watching the video, you can go back, take notes about what the questions were, make a response to your answers, and we'll continue. But I'll just continue for right now because I assume you're going to pause. So at this point, we will talk about what you learned from doing that survey, and then we're going to move into the lesson 6, which is consequences. First of all, I would like to make a little disclaimer based on past conversations. I hope I have not given you the impression that because you have an effective set of tools that you must consistently use them or risk being considered a bad parent. We are all human. The difference is now, when you do something, you can evaluate whether you felt it was effective, and know that there are many strategies you can apply next time. Make sense? Great. So at this point, I'm going to ask the participants to tell me what tools have you learned so far, and I want to hear what you have, what you remember, and then I will see what we've missed. So at this point, I would want parents to tell me what they remember. And so if you've been following this program all along, you would pause this video and take time to recollect what you've learned. And then we'll see what I came up with. And another disclaimer on this is that family meetings is a strategy that we would have learned in Chapter 5, and we haven't, that's not on this PowerPoint. But as you see from the PowerPoint, the tools in your tool belt are identifying goals of misbehavior, negative attention as a reinforcer, plan to eliminate a behavior, proactive approach, choices, parental unity, encouragement, active listening, iMessages, and family meetings. And as I said, what I would want you to do, well, no, I didn't say that, but what I would like you to do is let's talk about each one and add on information about each one as you recollect what we've learned. So at this point, if you've been taking this class and you're up to Chapter 6, I would want you to stop and write down everything you know about what identifying the goals of misbehavior means to you. What do you remember about the effect of negative attention? What do you remember about negative attention? What was our plan? How did we go about planning to eliminate a behavior? And on and on. So at this point you could pause and reflect on that. what tool you apply, you have been empowered by knowledge. And could you pause the video for a second, Maureen? Just pause it, please. You can't pause it. Okay. For some reason, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Okay. So no matter what tool you employ, you have been empowered by knowledge. Your confidence has been elevated, and when you discipline, this confidence will be communicated. Today, we will add another tool, how to apply natural consequences. Just like all the previous tools, it's not appropriate to use all the time, but sometimes this may be perfect. Allowing natural consequences to occur is especially significant as your child matures. Logical consequences will help reduce the negative effect of punishment and infuse a very effective teaching tool. So on we go with natural consequences. First of all, what do you know about natural consequences? And at this point, if you are doing this chapter, I would advise you to put it on pause and reflect on what you know about natural consequences. And if it was necessary to add to that, to what you know, I would say that a natural consequence occurs naturally. Touching something hot will provide an immediate consequence. That is guaranteed. Of course, we don't want to let our children get hurt physically. However, there are many situations or choices that children make that will result in sad feelings rather than physical injury. And in those situations, it may be wise to allow natural consequences to unfold. So when you are faced with a choice between protecting your child and letting them experience a natural consequence, it is helpful to think about which approach will result in achieving your goal of raising a responsible child. So now I'd like you to think about how you've seen other people or yourselves interfere with natural consequence that actually ends up resulting in enabling a child. And at this point, I'd like you to pause the video and think about that. I'll give you one situation after you've had that discussion. Ever have a power struggle with a child about wearing a hat or wearing a jacket? So if you think about it, whose issue is it? Whose problem is it? If the child never experienced a power struggle over that, if you never made it an issue, and they went outside and they were cold, would they experience cold? Of course. Might they say they're not cold just to have control over the issue if it was a power struggle? Yes. But if it was never a power struggle, that would never enter into their minds that they would deny the fact that they were cold. Does that make sense? So in the book, chapter 6, they talk about whose problem is it. And that's a really great way to look at it. So let's look at whose problem is it. Nope, no screen yet. Sorry, my mistake, back here. So at 5 years old, your child has a friend who comes over, and your child does not share, and the friend wants to go home as a result. Whose problem is that? Of course, it's your child's problem. They feel sad that their child is leaving. What would happen naturally if you did nothing? You'd have to take the child home or call up the parent and ask the parent to come pick up the child. And how might a parent interfere with the natural consequence unfolding? Well, I know in my situation, I might try to negotiate with the child and see if we can work something out, take my child aside, and that's all fine and good. I'm not saying that's the wrong approach, but it is another effective tool to let the consequence unfold naturally. How about at 6 years old, your child sits there and they don't like the dinner? What would be the natural consequence? That's right, they don't eat. Whose problem is that? Well, you might take it personal and you might make it your problem, but that's a choice. You can make it your problem. could also think about it that it's your child's problem. How about if your child forgets their homework? As a teacher, I know that was a biggie. Whose problem is it if the child forgets their homework? That's right, it's the child's problem. And guess what? If you don't interfere with that, the child will go to school and the teacher will have to deal with that child not doing their homework. There probably will be a school consequence. And that way, you don't have to get involved in nagging, and your child will become more responsible because they want to do their homework and they want to do good in school, not because you want them to. Now, of course, if it becomes a bigger issue, that's something different. But always think about how to let natural consequences unfold. Just think about it and know that you have a choice. So now we're going to look at logical consequences as opposed to natural consequences. And I know you've been asking about logical consequences. What are logical consequences? I've kept saying it's coming, so it's here. Logical consequences are different than natural because you must connect the dots. Logical consequences also help a child learn from their mistakes by connecting the consequence to the behavior in a way that teaches a lesson more effectively than a general punishment, such as a loss of dessert or screen time. Learning to apply developmentally appropriate consequences that are as logical as possible will be an effective way to guide your child. And I would ask for questions at this point. I also want to talk about delaying a consequence, not giving a consequence immediately. That's okay. You may want to delay the consequence until an effective one comes to mind. Telling a child that there will be a consequence, and you will know, and you will let them know what it is when you and mommy or daddy talk about it, is often an added bonus. This opportunity for time is crucial, as it is not easy to come up with a good logical consequence, especially when you're just learning the skill. A good logical consequence is golden, and some fit the situation so seamlessly that you may marvel at the brilliance of it. Others do not, but they may all work beautifully. But do not let the promise of a logical consequence get swept under the rug and forget about it, because you can be sure your child will remember. If you do forget, your child will learn that you sometimes do not follow through, and your plan will be considerably less effective. And at this point, I'd like to know if there were any questions or comments. And now we're going to refer to Chapter 6 of the book, and I want you to tell me what Chapter 6 said about logical consequences. I want to hear what you remember about Chapter 6, and you can refer to your book. And at this point, if you were working with me throughout the if you were working through the STEP program, you would pause the tape, the video, and check through your book and talk about it. And then based on what you said, I may or may not mention this, because you might have mentioned it already, but let's look at punishment versus consequences. It is human nature to resent punishment, and therefore resent the punisher. This causes ill feelings between parent and child. When logical consequences are applied, the child learns that their behavior has consequences, but those consequences are a result of their behavior rather than the parent's arbitrary decision. The consequence becomes a more effective teaching tool, and the parent's role is less significant. This shift is powerful. And now the next slide is all about logical consequences and their benefits. They show respect for you and your child. They fit the misbehavior. They are for bad choices, not bad kids. They are about now, not the past. They are firm and friendly, and they allow choice. And again, I would wait for questions and comments. Next slide. There are a few logical consequences, and the first one is about connecting the dots with